This is SBS News in Easy English. I'm Peggy Giacomellos. Stuart Robb has confirmed that Peter Dutton will be the Liberal Party's new leader, with former Environment Minister Susan Lee to be sworn in as deputy later today. Mr Robert, a Queensland Liberal MP, says that voters should prepare to be surprised by the former Defence Minister's soft heart.
Peter Dutton has had some very difficult portfolios in terms of immigration, the home affairs space and defence, but he's well-read, well-learned, has a beautiful family and a soft heart. I think Australian voters will be very surprised by the Peter Dutton they see.
A flu jab will be available to all New South Wales residents from June the 1st in an effort to contain this year's expected severe influenza season. With a sharp increase in flu cases already, the New South Wales government will fund vaccinations at GPs and pharmacies until the end of June to boost immunity. Western Australia, South Australia and Queensland are also providing all residents with free flu vaccinations. Chief Health Officer Dr. Carey Chant said there were 1,140 cases of respiratory illness reported this week, up from 766 in the previous week, with hospital admissions also rising. There's been an increase in the number of people over the age of 65 dying from COVID in the community. New South Wales has been the most impacted, with more than 100 people dying from COVID in the past week alone, mainly within that older age group. The state government says that some of the deaths were previously unreported. The US Justice Department has announced that it will conduct a review into the slow police response to last week's shooting in Texas. The announcement comes as anger grows in the town following the admission that armed officers were on site for more than 40 minutes before they entered the classroom where students were trapped with the 18-year-old gunman. President Joe Biden and his wife Jill are visiting the town to meet with victims' families. Earlier, the couple laid flowers at a memorial outside of the school. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has visited the country's second-largest city of Kharkiv on the first trip outside the Kiev region since the start of the Russian invasion. While praising Kharkiv regional officials for their work, Zelensky says he has fired the regional head of the country's top security agency, the SBU, for poor performance.
I arrived, figured things out and fired the head of the security service of Ukraine in the Kharkiv region because he did not work to defend the city from the first day of the full-scale war, but thought only of himself personally. What were his motives? Police are investigating. 1/3 of the Kharkiv region is still under occupation. We will definitely vacate the whole territory, and everyone should work for this result in positions at both the local and state levels.
In cycling, Hindley has become the first Australian to win the Giro d'Italia. He started the 17.4-kilometre final stage with a lead of 1 minute and 25 seconds. He finished 15th, but only lost 7 seconds to his nearest challenger, Richard Carapaz. The Perth-born 26-year-old becomes only the second Australian to win one of cycling's Grand Tours after Cadel Evans won the 2011 Tour de France. Hindley says it's a very special moment for him.
Yeah, it's really incredible, man. I'm really proud to be Australian and happy to take this one home.
And that's SBS News in Easy English. This is SBS News in Easy English. I'm Peggy Giacomellos. The new federal government is taking shape, with Labor reaching the 76 seats needed to govern in majority. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is expected to announce his ministry today. West Australian MP Anne Arley, Christy McBain from southern New South Wales, and Queensland MP Annika Wells are tipped to be given front bench roles. They're filling spots left by the defeated Christina Keneally and Terry Butler, while Queensland MP Shane Newman will move to the back bench. The head of Reporters Without Borders says a French journalist killed in Ukraine had most likely been targeted by Russian forces. General Director of Reporters Without Borders, Christophe Delaire, made the comments following the death of 32-year-old BFM TV journalist Frederic Leclerc-Imhoff. Leclerc-Imhoff was fatally hit by shell shrapnel while covering a Ukrainian evacuation operation. Mr. Delaire says the journalist was inside an identified humanitarian aid vehicle.
From the beginning of the war, we have to notice that the journalists and the other citizens, of course, civilians, are targeted by Russian forces. Here, the journalist, this young journalist working for the French TV channel, was in a bus which was clearly identified as a humanitarian vehicle, so it is very likely that he was targeted by Russian forces.
Russian authorities are denying reports that Vladimir Putin is sick. There has been repeated and unconfirmed reports that the Russian president is ill, potentially suffering from cancer. The BBC is reporting that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has told French television that no one could think Mr. Putin was unwell, given that he appeared in public every day. New figures released show Australians have turned to tobacco during the pandemic. Figures released for World No Tobacco Day reveal nearly 1 in 2 Australians have struggled with managing their stress levels, including 14% who have turned to cigarettes or vaping. Director of Quit Australia, Dr. Sarah White, says it's been challenging to get quit smoking messages to the public during the pandemic.
Every time we put one of those campaigns on air, we see increases in calls to quit lines, we see increases in people going to websites looking for support to quit. So they absolutely work. And one of the things that we were a little bit worried about is a lot of those campaigns were off air during the pandemic period because we had clear air for the COVID vaccination messaging. But we've also seen a lack of funding for those campaigns from the Australian government, and that we think has also been a really big issue.
Police in Adelaide have charged a man over the abduction of a baby during a car theft. The 37-year-old has been refused bail and will front court today. Police say the 4-month-old was in his mother's car when the man allegedly got into the police vehicle and drove off. Police found the child in his baby capsule about 2 hours later when they found the car parked in the suburb of Enfield. The Bureau of Meteorology says some Australians can expect freezing temperatures, strong winds and even snow as winter arrives. Damaging winds are forecast for Sydney and the south coast of New South Wales for tonight, while strong winds were expected over the Blue Mountains tomorrow. The Bureau's Jackson Brown says the cold snap is due to a deep low-pressure system over Adelaide that is now moving towards the east coast.
Powerful cold front moves across southern Australia with damaging to possibly destructive winds and low-level snow. Now, this system is moving towards the east with a large pickup in weather expected across southern Queensland, New South Wales, ACT and Melbourne.
And that's SBS News in easy English.